An update on breaking news from moments ago. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo says all schools in his state can reopen. A dramatic turnaround from what was once the worldwide epicenter of COVID-19. The governor says the current infection rate is low enough to get kids back in the classroom this fall. Now the districts have to present their plans, Mike. We'll see what they come up with.
We are back with our amazing panel, Eduardo Rodriguez and Marshall Kosloff, to talk about the latest with regards to our friend Joe Biden. I think it's fair to say Joe Biden has a history of making some eyebrow-raising comments when it comes to discussing race relations, when it comes to talking to African Americans in particular. And we have a new entry into that category this week in an interview with National Association of Black Journalists and National Association of Hispanic Journalists. He sought to compare the Black in the Latino communities, and it did not go that well. Let's take a listen.
Yes, and by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
Marshall, let me just off the top here get your reaction to those comments.
Yeah, I mean, look, the coldest take of the morning is going to be that Joe Biden is not the most eloquent speaker. He's been making gaffes like this for the past 40 plus years. I think people who try to sort of turn this into a broader thing beyond sort of a fun little gaffe is that everyone knows he does this. No one's electing or voting for Joe Biden because they think he's a President Obama in 2008, able to eloquently speak about a variety of topics. But look, I mean, the thing that's frustrating here is the broader point he's making is actually a really valid one, which is that, you know, as part of the legacy of 200 years plus of slavery, Black people are a much more unified community in this country than Hispanics are, right? Like I was seeing this morning, try telling a...
Lebanon's leadership is facing growing anger over the deadly blasts that have killed more than 150 people and injured thousands more. Shock is turning to fury. Authorities responded with force when protesters gathered outside Parliament. Opponents accuse the government of corruption, incompetence, and failing to avert an economic meltdown. French President Emmanuel Macron flew into Beirut, promising aid from the international community. But he also says there will be no blank checks, and he insists there must be internal reform from the top.
As the people of Beirut come together to clean up the debris from Tuesday's catastrophic explosion, world leaders are lining up to provide aid. French President Macron landed in Beirut, addressing the anger felt by the people towards the corruption regarded as making the blast possible and that has plagued the country for decades. He has also promised assistance. What I can guarantee you is that this aid will be transparent. It will go to the field and it will not go in the hands of the corrupt. Lebanon is a former French protectorate, and the two countries still have close ties today. Surrounded by crowds, Macron listened to the outrage and pleas for help, while chants of revolution and end the regime sounded all around. I am here today. I am going to propose a new political pact this afternoon, and I will come back by September 1st, and if it has not been obtained, I will take responsibility for it. Macron later announced the launch of an international conference in the coming days, with the aim of raising funds to support the people of Beirut. We are no longer able to continue this way. In this situation, people do not have enough money to continue what they started. The country cannot take it anymore. We have been fighting for 50 years in order to raise our family in these circumstances that we live in. Now we're finished. We have been working for our retirement, but they've finished us. Hopes rest on an international aid effort to pull together so the residents of Beirut can rebuild their homes, their city, and their community.
Let's bring in our correspondent in the Lebanese capital. Razan Salman is with us now. Hi, Razan. People have been protesting near the parliament in Beirut. What more can you tell us about that?
Indeed, Sumi, there were clashes between the security forces and the protesters in an anti-government demonstration that took place yesterday near the Lebanese parliament. The security forces, they deployed tear gas on dozens of protesters who gathered around the parliament to ask the government to resign, since they believe the government is responsible for the explosion that took place on Tuesday, because the 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate were stored in a warehouse in Beirut port with no proper security measures.
Razan, we saw those images of the French President Emmanuel Macron walking through the streets of Beirut. He has promised international assistance to Lebanon, but he's also calling on the country's leaders to launch anti-corruption reforms. How was that message received?
Yes, this morning the Lebanese authorities they took into custody 16 individuals as part of an investigation into the Beirut port's explosion. And on the other hand, they assigned an investigative committee, and they gave the committee 4 days in order to claim who is responsible for this explosion. And the central bank ordered to freeze the accounts of heads of Lebanese customs and Beirut ports officials. On the other hand, 44,000 Lebanese people signed an online petition asking to place Lebanon under the French mandate for the next 10 years, since they completely lost the trust in their own government and its ability to manage the country.
Well, it's important to mention that a lot of people are still missing. I mean, how is the rescue effort going?
The rescue efforts are still in progress. Just this morning, 2 dead bodies were found under the rubble. And the officials, they expect the death toll to rise within the next few hours, since the rescue efforts are still in progress. The Minister of Health just announced, this is the official number, just announced that 154 people were dead after the explosion. More than 5,000 people were injured, and along with 300,000 people who have completely lost their homes.
DW's Razan Salman reporting from Beirut. Thank you.
White House health experts on Thursday warned of a slow rise in the percentage of people testing positive for the coronavirus in a number of major U.S. cities and urged local leaders to remain vigilant to avoid a surge. Infectious diseases expert Dr. Anthony Fauci told CNN the increase is, quote, a predictor of trouble ahead. Cities of concern include Boston, Chicago, Detroit, and Washington. Even if most people are cautious, Fauci warned, those not wearing masks or following social distancing guidelines can keep the virus smoldering. He stressed that everyone pull together, a message he also conveyed to Reuters in an interview this week.
We see in our own country a great diversity of the way people approach things, a great difference in the seriousness in which they take it. Whereas if we had a uniformity of it, and everybody rowed together in the same boat, we probably would do much better.
Fauci's White House coronavirus task force colleague, Dr. Deborah Birx, identified the new areas of concern this week and said that Baltimore and Atlanta remain at a, quote, very high level, as well as Kansas City, Portland, Omaha, and the Central Valley in California. Birx has been traveling around the U.S. in recent weeks, telling officials not to relax until the virus is under sufficient control. Her message has often been in contrast to that of her boss, President Trump, who this week said the virus will, quote, go away like things go away. Trump also said children are, quote, almost immune from COVID-19, prompting Facebook this week to take down his post containing a Fox News video clip in which he made the statement. Facebook said the post violated its rules against sharing misinformation about the virus. Trump on Thursday said it was possible the U.S. would have a vaccine before the November election, a far more optimistic forecast than that of health experts. On average, 1,000 people are dying each day nationwide from COVID-19. The U.S. death toll is now over 157,000, with 4.8 million known cases.